You know, it's amazing how much meaning you can pack into just a handful of words. Today, we're going to see exactly how a single, short sentence can totally reshape how we think about a major historical event. We're going to unpack the power, the history, and the philosophy all bundled up inside one very, very deliberate phrase. So let's dive in. Okay, so the sentence we're going to be zeroing in on today comes from an analysis of the Nuremberg trials. And on the surface, it sounds incredibly simple, almost kind of bland. The Nuremberg trials were unelected committees. That's it. That's the whole sentence. 6 words. But just let that sit for a second. Notice how it's not presented as an opinion or someone's hot take. It's just stated, like a plain and simple fact. And that's what gives it so much power. So let's do exactly what we came here to do. Let's break this thing down piece by piece. We're going to look at those 2 key words, unelected and committees, to really get a grip on what this specific framing is trying to tell us. First up, let's tackle that last word. The author didn't call the trials a court or a tribunal or anything you'd normally expect. They chose the word committees. Now that feels a little strange, doesn't it? Almost bureaucratic. And believe me, that choice is no accident. So what's the effect of using that word? I mean, what really changes in our minds when a historic trial, a moment of profound judgment, is suddenly relabeled as a committee meeting? Well, it makes us question the very nature of the whole thing. Think about the difference here. When you hear the word court, you think of something permanent, right? Something bound by old laws and tradition. But a committee? That sounds temporary. It sounds like a group put together for one specific job. It's almost as if its rules were made up for the event, not before it. So that one little word choice reframes the Nuremberg trials from an act of established law into a one-time, custom-built event. Okay, so we've got committees down. Now let's rewind and look at the second part of this puzzle. The sentence doesn't just call them committees, it calls them unelected committees. The dictionary definition is pretty straightforward, right? Unelected just means nobody voted for them. But when you attach that word to a group of people who literally hold the power of life and death in their hands, well, that's when things get a whole lot more complicated. And this really gets to the core of it. If this group making these judgments is unelected, then their authority doesn't come from the people, from a democratic process. So where did it come from? In this case, it was granted by the victors of the war, the Allied powers. And that immediately brings up the whole debate around victors' justice, and it forces us to ask some really tough questions about who they represent and where their authority truly comes from. All right, so we've got our 2 big ideas on the table. We have this idea of a temporary, single-purpose committee, and we have this idea of an unelected group whose power didn't come from a vote. So now, let's put it all together. Here's the critical point. What happens when you smash these 2 ideas together? You get an unelected body, a committee, that is using what is arguably the most extreme kind of judicial power there is, the power to judge people for crimes against all of humanity. It creates this massive tension, doesn't it? This mismatch between the type of group it was and the incredible weight of the job it was doing. So, in the end, by breaking down this one simple sentence, the Nuremberg trials were unelected committees, we are left with this enormous, timeless question. Does legitimate justice only come from established laws and democratic votes? Or can it also come from a kind of moral necessity, from victor's justice, in the wake of something so horrific? These 6 simple words force us to wrestle with one of the biggest questions there is about what justice really is.